Hi, buddy. How are
How
you?
are you?
Do you know you're now our most frequent guest?
I was told I pulled into the lead today.
Congratulations.
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm
big
feeling pretty
deal.
good about it.
Big deal, big day to do it.
I just called my guy who edits my Wikipedia page.
You have a guy?
No.
I gotta get a guy to do that.
But by the way, you may just want to.
I think leading up to today, there were, rightfully so, fears about safety, fears about the many COVID protocols that would have to take place. And that maybe clouded what today could be. And now that it's happened and we've seen the inauguration, did you find optimism in it?
A lot, yeah. I feel, the thing I said last night was my feeling has been like if you've ever been in a near-miss car accident, that feeling afterwards of like adrenaline and excitement. It's not joy. It's not like you're like, wow, I came real close just there. So
well, especially when you think about, the numerous negatives this president had in the minds of voters, it was so close.
Right.
Like it wasn't in the end, again, there was, as a pure numerical vote count, it was a repudiation, but the Electoral College did not repudiate Donald Trump.
No, I mean, again, the whole wiring of the system is faulty. I think that's clear, So I think I definitely felt real relief and some joy today, some real hope about what we avoided and how bad it could have been, and what we have, through a lot of effort by our fellow Americans of all different kinds of walks of life. I mean, we have this thing, right, where we think about these there's the Rust Belt diners, and then there's the effete urban college grads or whatever. It's a big country, and there were people who were going to Black Lives Matter protests in small towns in the Midwest, and there were people who were doing women's marches in Idaho. And there's all kinds of people from all kinds of different backgrounds who came together to say, this is not right. And they did it for 4 years, and in the end, saved the country from what I think would have been essentially its last chapter as the democracy that it used to be.
I'm thinking, it's not quite a parallel, but, obviously one of the things that President Biden had to address today is the fact that we have this COVID crisis that, I think due to real exhaustion with the numbers, with the attention on both the election and the aftermath of the election. And you have done a great job of drawing attention to the fact that we've just sort of normalized this terrible crisis with this growing death toll. And much like, the Obama-Biden administration obviously came in the middle of a financial crisis, but part of when you think about the fact that Donald Trump complained about inauguration size, there really wasn't as much going on insofar as a crisis to this magnitude. Yeah,
I mean, again, you keep searching for the right analog or precedent, and there is nothing great. I mean, it was striking to me it is part of our kind of civic sacraments that we talk about Lincoln, because Lincoln is, he is this sort of totemic figure, rightly so. But today it had, when we talk about the Union, disunion, and uncivil war, when you quote Lincoln, Lincoln took over a nation gripped in what would be its probably worst crisis ever, and FDR was close. And I remember being on the steps in 2009 when we were losing 800,000 jobs a month and looked like the whole thing could go under. This is even worse than that. And I think that Biden has done a very good job. I think the whole incoming administration has done a very good job of centering COVID. I mean, one of the weirdest things, surreal and sadistic in its own way, was that because of the narcissism and sociopathic kind of proclivities of the last president, talking about people dying from COVID was viewed by him and his faction as an insult to him personally. It was that you couldn't talk about it because you were then insulting Donald Trump. So this bizarre silence has gripped.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not a 41-year-old incoming Republican congressman from Louisiana died of COVID before he could take office. And it was just kind of that's a horrible tragedy for him, for his family, for this bright life the guy had ahead of him. I mean, but I think this kind of heavy blanket of swallowing silence has been lifted. And that's a really important thing.
It does strike me that, and again, we'll see. And I think that, sometimes we talk about tone a lot, and right now what we need is a plan and results.
Yep.
But it does strike me that President Biden has historically been pretty good framing tragedy and both helping us understand the way to approach it and the way to process it. And that really struck me more last night than today. But, you know, at the memorial last night, you realized, oh, this is a guy who understands loss and understands moving forward from loss.
Persistence and endurance
Yeah.
and mourning and keeping going. Yeah, I mean, I think in that way there is a kind of cosmic alignment of this guy that, you know, I joked today on Twitter that the first time he ran for president was 1988, like, never let go of your dreams. You know, it's like, it's an amazing fact. This guy, you know, 48 years in public life. He's elected as the youngest you could possibly be to enter the Senate, 29 years old. Horrible tragedy, lives his entire career. He's only done one thing since he was 30.
Yeah.
Which is be a public figure. And now, you know, at his age, to take over this country in crisis, having seen what he's seen and lived through what he's lived through, like, there is a certain kind of weightiness to it all. And I think you're right. I think his instincts on that are right. Now, the other thing you said is so true also. Like, you know, competence and getting stuff done matters more than anything.
Right.
I mean, I thought he hit the right notes today. There are some extremely, supremely competent people that I think highly of in that administration. But it's not easy, the task they have for themselves. It's not trivial.
And that, you know, and it's really important to know, like, it was never going to be important. Oh, sorry, it was never going to be easy for any administration. It wasn't. I think, like, we were never saying it was easy for the Trump administration to deal with this, you know, crisis. But you know, ultimately, at some point, you have to have a plan. I want to talk more with Chris. We'll be right back right after this.